Arishem the Judge. It's important to clarify that most Celestials can't be ranked in terms of who punches harder the way other characters can, like Thor versus Hulk. This is because, based on the circumstances, who would come out on top can really change. What we do know is that they're all pretty relative to each other. With that being said, Arishem the Judge is comfortably one of the higher tiers. He dispenses the final judgment on a planet's survival, and destroying a world is nothing to him if he deems it unworthy, which is just one of his many powers. We know that Arishem has been active since the earliest eras of the universe, shaping stars, galaxies, and life long after its creation. Being a Celestial grants him some basic privileges, such as immortality, surviving in the vacuum of space, and size manipulation. In the comics, Arishem leads the fourth host of Celestials during the final day of the 50-year Judgment of the Earth. The hosts are basically celestial expeditions, where a group of them arrive at a planet to pass their judgments or evaluate the planet. While the MCU shows us what it looks like when he lets a planet go, the comics show us what it looks like when he decides one is unworthy. Arishem and the second host once unleashed the Great Cataclysm, which was meant to mirror the biblical flood. The Cataclysm sank Lemuria and Atlantis in the comics, wiping out the Deviants and most of the Eternals, and was described as an apocalyptic event, but that's just one of his many feats throughout Marvel history. He's also melted the Odin Sword, which is said to be the weapon that ends all existence. And, speaking of Odin, the Asgardian god once teamed up with Zeus and Vishnu and led a combined assault on Arishem, which barely even shook him, and his energy was described as immeasurably more potent than the three of them. Some of his other feats include banishing Null into the void alongside his other celestial companions. Yes, that Null. He is easily one of the most powerful Celestials in the fourth host, and he's a perfect example of why the Celestials are feared throughout all of Marvel, not just a few corners. There are a few that outclass even him, such as the next Celestial we're going over, Tiamut, the Dreaming Celestial. In the MCU, we barely got to see Tiamut, but what we did see was frightening. His birth was prevented by the Eternals, leading to his giant corpse being stranded in the ocean. However, in the comics, we actually see him a lot more. His role was the communicator. He would alert the Fulcrum, who is basically one of the highest cosmic beings in all of Marvel, about any information Celestials would find out about certain planets. He was a part of the first Celestial host, making him one of the oldest beings within Marvel, even older than the current multiverse. We've seen a lot of interesting powers from Tiamut, such as being able to grant special powers to beings like the Eternal Makari and his speed. Remember the Cataclysm? So, that happened after Arishem disagreed with Tiamut, whose initial judgment was to cull Earth. Because of this, Tiamut thought Arishem was malfunctioning and ended up attacking and defeating him one-on-one. It took the combined force of 4 other Celestials and Arishem to overpower him, and it ended with him being imprisoned, not truly killed. Tiamut is even feared by Galactus, and why he does isn't a mystery. Even the Watcher was unable to see anything surrounding his awakening. He's able to broadcast his dreams to other entities, put everyone on Earth to sleep just by a special song, travel through time itself, and, like other Celestials, is nigh omnipotent and omnipresent. He's also the only Celestial who has ever questioned the Fulcrum, which is something no other Celestial has ever done, so he's definitely the rebel of the group. He's easily one of, if not the strongest, Celestials throughout Marvel history. Eson the Searcher. Eson is one of the few Celestials who gets a lot of screen time in the MCU. In Guardians of the Galaxy, we see him wield the Power Stone via his staff, wiping out an entire planet.
To mow down entire civilizations like wheat in a field.
We do know that the Power Stone amplified his already incredible cosmic abilities, although we aren't sure of how high that puts him in the pecking order. The interesting thing is that he could wield the stone effortlessly via his staff. Just for comparison's sake, even the Hulk was pretty damaged despite using the Nano Gauntlet. While he wasn't directly named, his design matches Eson from the comics completely. In the comics, We've seen him destroy the deviant Isle of Lemuria after being attacked by the deviants. We've also seen him communicate telepathically, but beyond that, not much is known about what his unique powers are, besides the ones that are commonly shared by all Celestials, such as manipulating cosmic energy, creating life and stars, and manipulating gravity. We have seen him teleport characters like She-Hulk and Ghost Rider in the comics during the final host, but that's about all. Ego, the living planet. Now, there's a lot of debate as to whether or not Ego is a Celestial within the MCU. While he claims he is one,
I'm what's called a Celestial, sweetheart.
he doesn't seem to share the same qualities as the others we've seen, especially the ones shown in Eternals. What we do know about Celestials is that they're seeded and born, just like we saw with Tiamut, but Ego describes himself as flickering through the universe.
First thing I remember is flickering, adrift in the cosmos, utterly and entirely alone.
Regardless, that's up for you guys to decide, but for the sake of this list, we're going to include him. His power to control matter and molecules around him and keep adding it onto his own mass is definitely one of the most busted abilities in Marvel so far, easily putting him in the high tiers of the Marvel universe. Technically, there's no limit to just how much he can expand, which actually might mean that being a planet is on the lower end of his expansion-based capabilities. There's also no telling just how precise his matter manipulation skills are. We do see him create humanoid forms, massive tentacles of cosmic energy that he uses to restrain the Guardians, which could also phase through people. We've seen him use those same tentacles to siphon energy from his ship, which he used to fire projectiles against the Sovereign fleet. This, combined with the fact that he drew on Star-Lord's own celestial essence, gives him the ability of power absorption as well. Ego possesses inhuman super strength, easily taking down the Guardians, as he was shown dragging the Guardian's ship without any effort, although that's a very small feat for a Celestial, or at least a Celestial-level being. He also doesn't have a proper physical form, as his real form is the glowing blue brain we see. Not only that, but he's also ridiculously durable, as we see in his fight against Star-Lord when they're tossing each other through the planet, which is also Ego's body. The energy within Ego's core is his strongest weapon, though, which gets boosted dozens of times when he siphons Peter Quill's energy.
I wanted to do this together! That I suppose you'll have to learn by spending the next 1,000 years as a battery!
Which gives him the power to actually end the universe if his expansion plan had gone through. Combined with his immortality, intelligence, and millions of years of experience, Ego is genuinely one of the most terrifying beings in the universe, and that's without going into his bag of tricks from the comics, in which he's even more of a threat. Jemiah the Analyzer. Jemiah's role is to assess potential species, organisms, and civilizations and keep track of their progression. He evaluates the many genetic experiments that the Celestials have conducted and reports them to Arishem. He's definitely in the same tier as the other Celestials, and he was one of the Celestials who ganged up on Tiamut during the second host in order to imprison him. In the comics, we've seen Jemiah teleport himself across vast distances, create incredible energy blasts, and he's shown to have a high level of invulnerability as well. He was also one of the Celestials who banished Null back into the void. Unique to Jemiah is the ability to analyze any aspect of an organism from its molecules to the way its cells function. Jemiah uses this to carry out his role as an analyzer, coupled with his incredible intelligence, which is one of the highest in the entire Marvel-verse. He's definitely one of the most versatile. Another ability that is unique to Jemiah is biophysical control, which is essentially the ability to alter the genetics of living beings. He could de-evolve you back into a monkey, or accelerate your evolution to a new form. He can also activate latent mutations in organisms, or give them entirely new ones. Jemiah can also create illusions to make himself invisible so that he can do his analyzing duties in peace, uninterrupted by the life around him. If he can analyze entire planets and species faster than anyone can comprehend, while also manipulating the energy and matter around him, then he can use that skill in incredibly unique ways. We see him do this in the Eternals, where he seems to be generating and collecting a mass of energy, possibly for the creation of a new world or galaxy. In the comics, despite playing an analyzer role, he's one of the most relevant Celestials. He was one of the major players in the rebellion against the First Firmament, who was basically the embodiment of the very first universe in Marvel. He created the Celestials and Aspirants, so you can only imagine how strong Jemiah is to openly rebel against him. Hargen the Measurer. Like most Celestials, Hargen the Measurer has a precise job. He's responsible for evaluating whether or not a planet is worth preserving or correcting. This isn't the same as Arishem's job, because Arishem passes the final verdict. It's more like one step below that. Hargen is one of the oldest Celestials, being present during Arishem's judgment of Earth in the comics alongside the judge. Hargen's measurements account for a planet's biological development, technological growth, and potential future impact on the universe. The fact that this assessment can end with planetary destruction tells you everything you need to know about the scale he operates on. Hargen is also one of the Celestials who directly interacts with Earth's gods. When Thor attempts to challenge the Celestials, it is Hargen who responds, effortlessly neutralizing him without escalation. Thor isn't defeated through combat, he's just dismissed entirely. In the comics, Hargen and the other Celestials also similarly killed Black Bolt when he confronted them on the moon during one of their visits to Earth. The Celestials don't exactly bother with overpowering their enemies in a traditional fight. This isn't to be confused with Scarlet Witch killing Black Bolt in the MCU, which was a separate event. However, one of the coolest storylines from the comic actually shows us Black Bolt, Namor, Iron Man, and the Asgardians banding together to fight against Hargen and his celestial kin when they come to purge Earth. None of them can stand against these space gods, not until Franklin Richards arrives in the form of Galactus, which is a whole other can of worms. If you all aren't familiar, Franklin Richards, son of Sue and Reed Richards, is one of the most powerful cosmic beings in all of Marvel, something he proves yet again when he defeats the Celestials in this storyline, including Hargen. One interesting tidbit is that Hargen actually didn't participate in the rebellion against the First Firmament. Now, whether that's a statement about his power level or a personal decision by the Celestial, we don't know. This kind of shows us that no matter how many heroes team up, they just can't put a dent in Celestials like Hargen, who is still not in the league of beings like Tiamut and Arishem. The One Above All. This one is comics only, but it didn't feel right to end this list without talking about one of the highest ranking out of all the Celestials in Marvel lore, the One Above All. The One Above All, the Celestial, is often confused with Marvel's supreme creator entity, but in the comics, this version is a distinct celestial being, and one of the most powerful ever shown. He appears during the Celestials' judgment of Earth, standing apart even from figures like Arishem. Unlike other Celestials, who arrive as part of a host and operate collectively, the One Above All is treated as a singular presence whose authority does not require reinforcement. While they share the same name, they are not the same entity. So, as confusing as it is, keep that in mind. In the comics, he is responsible for overseeing and concluding celestial judgments, acting as a final check on outcomes that even Arishem enforces. When he appears, there is no debate, no resistance, and no escalation. His decisions are accepted immediately by other Celestials, including those who normally lead hosts. That alone places him in a tier above standard celestial command structures. He can bend the fabric of space and time as he pleases, create black holes as if they're nothing, and send commands to the Celestials from their mothership, which is the spaceship home of the Celestials, bigger than a red dwarf star. He's only outranked by beings like the Living Tribunal, and in very specific circumstances and storylines, Thanos when he completes the Infinity Gauntlet. That was an event in which the Celestials teamed up and still failed to subdue Thanos, which is a feat for the Infinity Stones. Honestly, he's never depicted engaging in any kind of conflict, but that's also because no one would dare question his authority, not the hosts or even top tiers like Tiamut or Arishem. When the One Above All decides something or enforces it, that's final. There's no due process after that. This kind of authority puts him way above any Celestial we've seen in this list. The MCU, or the comics so far, and that's fitting for the leader of the Celestials. There are a lot more beings in the cosmic hierarchy of Marvel that deserve their own video, and many are in this same universe-bending realm of power. But for that, and many more details about the universe of Marvel, you have to stay tuned.